when we talk about how we implement artificial intelligence, it tends to become an add-on. That's not the full utilization of the impact that artificial intelligence can really drive. The people that are most ready to adopt AI are not always the people that are already there in the position you expect them to be. Someone in housekeeping is actually very active with artificial intelligence in their own capacity, personal stuff that they post online, things that they follow because they enjoy it. And they have a better understanding of, for example, that there are two types of people in any organization. You have the dreamer and you have the doer. There's a lot of content that's being put out online with very little context.
Then they start small and then they stall.
Yeah.
They get stuck. Why?
Yeah. So whoever holds the power of compute holds the future of intelligence.
There are people who talk about AI, and then there are the people who make AI understandable, structurally, logically, and in a way leaders can actually use. Today's guest is one of the most insightful thinkers in this space. For almost 20 years, he has been leading large digital and AI initiatives across the Middle East, from government to financial service to tourism, helping organizations redesign how they work, not just adopt new technology. What stands out about his work is the ability to bridge emerging AI capabilities with real business strategy. He makes complex topics simple, he gives leaders clarity, and he focuses on impact, not noise. His work with the governments, Fortune 500 companies, and some of the most ambitious transformation programs in the region. And he's been recognized globally, featured by CNN, the Financial Times, Bloomberg, Fast Company, Wired, because he doesn't repeat trends. He explains what actually matters. My guest today is Moussa Beidas, partner and AI go-to-market leader at PwC Middle East. Moussa, welcome to AI for Sales Edge.
Thanks.
I'm really glad, Moussa, that you came, because you are the strongest voice in the region when it's coming talking about AI not as a technology, but as a structural shift. So I heard you very often talk about the difference between designing with AI versus adding AI on top of the existing current processes. So I'm sharing similar view. I'm calling it changing the logic how business works. But let's start from there. So how does it look like in practice, designing with AI, and why companies still using AI like plug and play tool?
Yeah, that's an amazing question. I think it boils down to human nature. I think a lot of it has to do with questioning new technology and its impact or its ultimate long-term impact. So today, when we talk about how we implement artificial intelligence, a lot of it has to do with what is the quickest way for me to implement the technology so I can get the soonest impact occurring in my organization. Because I want to demonstrate that, look, I'm on the cutting edge too. I'm doing stuff that no one else is doing. I'm starting with AI. The truth is when we approach it from that perspective, it tends to become an add-on, like you said. It becomes something where I'm making Excel smarter, or I'm making my email inbox quicker. That's not the full utilization of the impact that artificial intelligence can really drive. And so whenever I have conversations, there's always a process that needs to take place. And starting somewhere is important. Not everyone can start from scratch with artificial intelligence and overnight rebuild their company. They need to start using the experience, using the tool, in order for them to be able to understand where the biggest impact can happen.
And where they actually should start. Because we know traditional start is let's start from technology. I know companies going to say we're going to treat AI like any other technology. If there is a use case, we're going to do it. Then there are companies who are going to say, okay, we have challenges, so maybe AI can sort it out. And companies who said, okay, all is good, but what helped me get here not going to take me further. So where companies actually should start? Because as you explained, what I'm seeing now, it's not problem technology, it's readiness. And what does it mean being ready Because this is not like waiting for miracle to happen. It's about they need to do something to get ready. So what they need to do?
So there are a number of places where we need to start. The first is, first of all, making sure that the team you have in your organization is ready for disruption.
For disruption.
For disruption. What does that mean?
Okay.
It means you need individuals that accept that the disruptive nature of this technology is coming, and it is going to reshape the way their own roles in an organization is going to become. But they are willing to take on this new way of working because others like them may be too afraid because they feel like, if I do this, am I going to lose my job? So these are some of the natural things.
So now you're talking about the employees, right?
I'm starting with skills. Skills is a really important place to start. Now, what we've found and what I found is most interesting is the people that are most ready to adopt AI are not always the people that are already there in the position you expect them to be. Let me give you an example. There was a recent white paper I contributed to around the hospitality industry. Hospitality is very sensitive when it comes to bringing in artificial intelligence because ultimately you need to be able to serve a guest in a way that is very human, but at the same time make sure that it's not too cold or automated, so much so that I don't get that brand experience I've been expecting when I'm paying for, an expensive hotel or expensive brand.
Yes.
So one thing that we've looked at was, what does the hospitality industry need to do to identify certain skill sets within a hotel that really can jump on the AI bandwagon quickly and even bring up new, unique ideas that can actually impact the way the hotel is run using AI. It's not in the back office. It's not in the traditional places you look. In many cases, it has a lot to do with the age group of the employee. So, for example, you might be surprised to find that someone in housekeeping is actually very active with artificial intelligence in their own capacity, personal stuff that they post online, things that they follow because they enjoy it. And they have a better understanding of, for example, what makes AI real, what makes it synthetic, what is actually working with people, what isn't.
So this is actually how people understand AI.
Correct. And if you were to, for example, open up a role in a hotel, but not just to the people in the back office or in administration, but everyone across the property, you'll find that there are a lot of people that maybe didn't necessarily pass your mind pre the massive explosion of AI, where now actually they might be a really strong fit. There could be someone in the housekeeping, it could be someone in the restaurants that have nothing to do with this type of role, but are actually really well placed to upskill quicker than certain people that maybe
we suppose that they actually
who are in tech, for example, who have studied something very specific all their life, and that's interesting, and that changes across industries, and we're noticing that. So skills is an important place to start, identifying the right champions in your organization.
So this is now how I understand it. So readiness and structure is foundation, but upskilling is the engine to run all of that.
It is the engine, and it is also the internal. And the reason why I use the word champion, it's quite important because you need people who are going to convert others, not just drive the technology. You need them to
convince others,
to get others to get excited about the disruption. And it's very hard to do that when you are maybe constrained with a specific type of tool or technology. Now, I'm not saying that everyone who studied, I don't know, Microsoft or .NET or any of those.
This is an interesting point because this is people that we are expecting and forgetting completely on the
fringes.
Exactly.
The ones that maybe you didn't cross your mind, right?
Never.
And this isn't a new concept. If you look at some of the most successful startup founders in the world, most of them have no prior experience in the medium or in the industry that they currently dominate.
Yes, that's right.
And that's because they come from a very different perspective. They look at the problem from a very different angle compared to how others perceive a problem. And ultimately, that's what got them ahead. So this is an opportunity for large organizations to identify hidden talent And that's what AI is currently driving. And that's what we're finding from a skill set perspective.
Upskilling is not workshop and training, what we know traditionally. So what is upskilling in the era of AI?
It's trial and error. That's the strongest way to explain it. It's trial and error. The speed at which the technology is evolving, it's very hard today to sort of put it in a compartment or find a way for you to accelerate the adoption of it without trying something first. I've said it before, AI is one of the newest forms of democratically available knowledge. And the truth is, and it applies to me, it applies to others who talk about AI, we're all learning at a similar pace. We're just honing in on specific bets, going deeper into specific industries or capabilities of the technology. But ultimately, as an overarching understanding, we are all learning at the pace of the originators, the large language models that started it all, that got this massive growth to happen globally. And so watching a lot of online content, reading a lot about use cases, reading a lot about white papers that are coming out of universities. There are a lot of university students that are doing their PhDs or their master's degrees around concepts of AI, being able to create large language models that are highly efficient, that require less power, that can do things in a fraction of the time the previous model could do. And it's a new methodology of thinking. And they're doing trial and error. You have the ability today to read on how people are approaching solving these problems. And you don't need to be a tech guru. You don't need to be someone who studied computer science. You just need to be inquisitive and curious to be able to get it.
Let's now take organizations. Who need an organization to initiate, be ownership, and who gonna drive it?
And what we found is that there are two types of people in any organization. You have the dreamer, and you have the doer. The dreamer usually is someone very high up. You're talking board of executives, you're talking governors, you're talking people who are up there, C-level executives looking down. Okay? Their vision is clear. They want to be disrupted. They want to disrupt themselves from within. They want to drive focus. And they want to go in a specific direction. They cascade this mandate to the doer. The doer is usually the guy that's in the boiler room or in the cockpit of an airplane. And they are responsible for driving. And they understand the risk factors. They understand what it took to get to where they are. And they understand, to a certain extent, where they believe they can be disrupted with this technology. That gap between the dreamer and the doer today is getting wider because of this. I'll tell you why. There's a lot of content that's being put out online with very little context. You see a lot of companies announcing, we've cracked this, we've done that.
Yes.
The truth is, they don't tell you it took us a week to get this one thing right, to be able to film or screen record these 30 seconds to show you the tool working. They don't tell you how long it took for them to get to this point where they were able to crack this. And they don't tell you how scalable this is. Maybe this was a one-off that works for a specific use case. How you can assume that you can apply this at scale. But it doesn't necessarily mean that that's true. And so when the dreamer sees this kind of content, he is continuously being told your dreams are valid and your ambition is attainable as fast as you think it is. But then when he gets to the doer and the doer is looking at what he's trying to achieve, it's those caveats that he is aware of usually.
So what are the questions that dreamers need to ask themselves before start dreaming?
That's a very good point. Very good question. So it's easy for you to identify where you want to cost save and where you want to reduce time to completion. Those two things are priorities because that's what's been identified as a key enabler for AI. The question you need to ask yourself is what industries have adopted this methodology or this way of creating value out of AI where they have managed to show it at a multitude of scale, where they will be able to say, this company took this on at scale. And when I say at scale, it's not that, to give you an example, you have big companies saying, I implemented AI and I reduced inefficiencies by 85%. What size of the population of your employees actually adopted this? Is it the entire organization? Is all 20,000 employees and you reduced inefficiencies by 90%? Because that's huge impact. Or is it you took a squad, you took a group of people aside, you gave them the same tasks, and you asked them to use this tool, and therefore the output was this. So you reduce inefficiencies for 10 people. Now multiply that by, I don't know, 10,000, then are you able to do that at that level? So you need to ask your question, you need to ask these, question, how efficient is this to scale, right? I think once you dig into those types of perspectives, you are going to realize very quickly that there are very few examples globally where that has been achieved, outside maybe the large software players, you know. And so always question what content you're viewing that claims massive impact, right? Because usually it is on a small scale.
Small sample.
Yeah. And then the next thing is understand what it will take for you to be able to get from 0 to 1, because you need to start. And we talked about this earlier. You need to start somewhere. So doing it with a small group is the right way to go. Doing it where you tack on something because you want to minimize the risk. You don't want to go and expose your entire platform that's been built over 30 years and your reputation on an untested methodology. You want to test. You want to try it in something small and do that, because the sooner you do, and that's why we're seeing a lot of this uptake, by the way, the sooner you do that, the sooner you're able to be one step ahead of your competition, because you would have learned something that is unique to your organization of what needs to be changed or what needs to be adapted to take what you've learned with that small group to the next level. Don't wait for it to be ready to be consumed by 20,000 people, because by then it'll be too late. Your competition would have already tried and failed multiple times in smaller scales and is already ahead. So start somewhere, and that's why people are starting somewhere. And I think that's the right approach. But understand it's not the be all and end all.
But then they start small and then they stall.
Yeah.
They get stuck. Why?
Yeah. So I think it's to do with the initial ambition that you set in the beginning. You need to set the ambition that what you're working on is a trial set. And you need to set outcomes, expected outcomes. Based on those outcomes, each outcome will have a next step associated with it. I trash this, try something else. A lot of people try this, fail, and think, oh, this isn't for me. I'll wait till it's ready. That's not the right approach. Try something else, pivot. It's a startup mindset that isn't very natural coming to large scale companies, is what gets them to stall. It's what they don't have, that startup mindset. It's quickly for them to realize, oh, actually, you know what? I lost a lot of money and time. I'll wait a bit because I have nothing to show for it. But the truth is your failure is actually a very critical data set, a very critical data point that you can use to make a much better decision moving forward.
Yes, but where they need to start? To start from the use case, to start from their problems, to start from the question what we want to improve in next 12 months as an outcome. Where to start?
A very good question. I think they're starting in places that are too simple. If you're going to take a risk and try something with a small sample, do it with something ambitious. Push it to its limits. And one of the misconceptions with how you use artificial intelligence is the lack of providing contextual awareness to a model. So let me give you an example. There are multiple case studies where companies that started with a small idea ended up changing the world. And we have examples of this from here in the UAE and elsewhere in Saudi Arabia and in Qatar, where you had small companies that had an idea and all of a sudden it became a massive brand because of virality. It went viral, people took it on, it became a household name globally. Now, if you were the Ministry of Economy and you said, I want to create 10 other companies like this, because that would be ideal for me. because the impact they would have had on my industry or my economy is massive. Brand awareness, creating jobs, attracting
and we have
new
use case as well that's successful.
Of course. Now, the truth is, if I went to an LLM and said, create a scenario where I can foster 20 other businesses like this, tell me what to do. It would require a lot of context to be able to do that. And a lot of times, we're not asking this type of massive output from an LLM. It's a big ask because we never thought technology would be able to answer a question like this. We always thought about, how can I improve business efficiency for the economy so that more businesses come and open shop? We're not thinking of those types of questions yet with technology, which is, how do I replicate the environment to foster companies to be able to come and set up and do this level of success? So to get a good answer or a reasonable answer from AI with that type of question, you need to look at things that we as humans may think are irrelevant to a machine to know. There are contextual attributes that led to the success of this organization. Who are the founders? What was their experience? Why were they here at this time? Why did they, or what was happening in the world at the time of when they started their company? What was happening around? What was the gap that they didn't realize they were solving for? Because that was not their intention. Their intention was following their passion. It wasn't about, I want to create the next big brand. It was about, I want to do something I like. It just so happened, it happened in a set of attributes that were well aligned.
Yes, there is a context in which it's
correct. And then at what point did it go viral? How did it lead to someone picking up this content that ended up posting at the right time to the right audience that ended up getting multiplied in its success? All these factors need to now be thought of and brought into account when you are driving intelligence output from large language models.
Now, when you mention intelligence, how we can make organization intelligent? Because we have now Gen AI and we have also augmented AI. If you want organization intelligence, we need to have both. Of course, augmented AI is a mandatory to make organization intelligent. And I think that also organization and people get stuck and lost how to do it and where to start with. Also, those type of things, which AI I need to apply. And there is do we optimize or transform? For me, it's clear, if you want to transform, you need to have and run intelligence organization.
One of the things that we look into are call centers, and we were seeing that industry being disrupted quite a bit. And there are a couple of very simple reasons why they're being disrupted. When you call a call center, you get put through to someone.
Oh, I don't want to call them.
No, exactly. Obviously, neither do I. Ideally, I'd like to send them.
I ask myself twice, do I really need to call?
Absolutely. Or you just want to send them a voice note, ideally. Let me just send my preferred brand a voice note if I need something from them and let them figure it out. Agreed. But obviously, there are different communication channels for different types of users. Certain people prefer the immediacy of speaking to something or someone.
Of course, or a different reason why they want to speak or just to express frustration.
Frustration, right? Yeah. But even that, right? We're getting to the point now where we're being able to capture tone of voice even from a voice message.
Yes, so that's true.
If someone sends an angry voice message, the AI doesn't even need to understand the context. Purely on the tonality of that person, it can instantly go red flag to a human being. Go, you need to get in on this. Someone's not happy. But I think call centers is a great example of this. Today, if I get cut off in a call center, one of two things can happen. Either you hope that they call you back because you spent a long time explaining your situation. You hope that they call you back. Or you call back and hope that the person you talk to has everything you've been talking about to date in front of them so that they can pick up where you left off. That is much harder to do when dealing with people manning calls versus a machine. A machine can pick up exactly when you left off at any time of day, as if you're calling back the exact same person you spoke to. That level of augmented workforce is very hard to replicate using people. because it's impossible for the same person who carried the call in the morning, hope they're free, to be able to answer the same call again.
No, of course.
And that is a massive increase in quality of experience for an end user, where someone picks up the phone and goes, "Oh, hey again, how was that dinner?" Or we talked about that flight you were booking. Do you want to do something to that flight? Instant. It's instant contextual awareness. This makes me feel like the entire company is working just for me, and they're waiting for me to ask them for something. Like that's a massive improvement in augmented experience.
And also customer experience.
Yeah.
You want to be the king in their environment.
100%.
To be treated like that.
100%. And to my hotel example that I was talking about earlier, where you want to be human-led, but tech-powered, right?
Okay, I love it.
What that means is I want that special human touch when I arrive, where the person comes up to me, recognizes me by my face because I've been there before. "Hey, how was your flight? The stuff you liked last time, all of it's in your room. Here's your key. Nothing needed." That's a wow experience. And that's when I need a human sort of experience to happen. Now, if I go up and realize I forgot my toothbrush, I don't need to talk to someone for that. I should be able to just message, "I need a toothbrush," and the robot could deliver it to my room. It's the quickest way to give me what I need, because it's not personal. To me, that's how quickly can I get that in my hands. That's when technology can lead. So it's finding the balance between where to bring in the human to augment and where to let technology lead. So it varies by industry, to answer your question. It really depends on what drives the goal of that company or that industry. And that's where you decide where you augment and so on. Now, your point about generative AI. Generative AI is now moving into the Agentic Era, right? Which is where the vast majority of use cases that we're seeing and the demand we're seeing is going into agentic. I think it's doing that for a number of reasons. It's, for the first time, it's being able to be visualized where leadership and decision makers can almost orchestrate or see how technology is being put together to drive an outcome. So you can, with agentic, create virtual versions of teams. So if you have a project manager, you have a client-facing, associate, you have a group of engineers that sit underneath them, and so on, then it becomes, okay, duplicate this in an agentic framework. These are the responsibilities of this individual. This is the responsibilities of that, and have them communicate to produce the outputs that I expect the current teams to do. Now, we don't expect companies today to go, "I've just cloned my team, I can get rid of them all." That's not where we believe the future is going. Future is going is where as I expand my company, I need to rely less and less on growing my employee base, instead focusing on empowering my existing base to be able to deliver higher output.
And higher impact, yes.
So imagine one PMO being responsible all of a sudden for 6 different PMOs driving impact, as opposed to you needing to hire additional people and additional squads and teams around that person. So you can now grow at scale using that agentic framework rather than relying on the traditional way of growth.
But is it for you how successful AI adoption looks like? Is it?
Look, we're seeing the success of AI adoption when it comes to large software providers, for example. So these companies tend to power a lot of large-scale enterprise clients, okay? And so a small change in efficiency of the software they provide can have a massive knock-on effect in terms of the success of impact. And so Microsoft's a good example of that, with Copilot. And so small tweaks in efficiency can drive large-scale impact on an enterprise level. And that's where we're seeing small changes and how AI is changing the way people use it. Now, for these big software companies, they're currently capturing huge amounts of data of what's working and what's not, which is going to be really important for them when they build their product pipeline and know where to invest. The users of these new efficient tools and applications are understanding the limitations of the technology as well. They're understanding, actually, it's not the silver bullet everyone's talking about. I don't know how that person I saw on LinkedIn was able to do that thing he showed me, but this does not seem like something I can do. And so it's understanding either a skill set limitation or it's understanding a software limitation. This is the natural progression of AI adoption as we see it today. It's those small tweaks that create data to drive better product roadmaps. And it's a skill and usage data set that's being created by users to understand limitations and to dig deeper to understand, well, how far can I push this today at scale? That's where I see, that's where we are today. Where we go really depends on the pace of adoption. So how quickly are we going to be able to adopt technology that can scale impact? That's the main question. And
do we have an answer on that? Or it still depends on the industry and organizations themselves, where they are in?
Yeah. So here's where I think the disruption is going to come. It's not going to come from within organizations. It's going to come externally. People who perhaps work in large-scale organizations, who understand the challenges they face, they're too big to move quickly. They're too risk-averse to try something radical. Tend to go out and build their own thing. And they build it knowing those limitations and providing solutions to them. And we're seeing a cascade of these individuals globally now doing this. So the question is, how quickly are these technology developers that have gone out to build solutions to these problems we're seeing, to scale AI in an impactful way? How quickly are they going to be able to get these in the hands of people? And how quickly are they going to be able to change perceptions at scale? Look, anyone can throw out a number. I think if you asked Sam Altman from OpenAI, he'd throw a different number to what Elon Musk would say with Grok, right? They each have their own perspective on how quickly their technology is going to evolve and how soon the next single person unicorn is going to come about. If you take it from my perspective, and I'm going to talk about the region, I think the region is working heavily to win and come up ahead, regardless of how long it takes for that success to take shape. The region is positioning itself as a key enabling driver to allow compute to be consumed at scale in an efficient way. That's their target. It doesn't matter who consumes that compute. It doesn't matter when. The anticipation is that eventually intelligence, the consumption of intelligence as a utility, will be to a point where only our region can make the mathematics or the calculations or the finances work so that the production of compute is actually efficient enough to be able to scale at that speed. And so that's where I would bet my money on today, is the ones preparing and scaling the infrastructure to enable success to actually happen when it happens. And I think that's what we're focusing on in this region today.
Now, when you're talking about Middle East, you said that Middle East is positioned to move faster than any other region. That you just explained why. And what are the gaps that need to be filled so it can move faster and like governance, upskill structure? What is missing?
So I think the first thing that's missing is today, right? Today, the gaps are demand. Demand in terms of the anticipated compute power that they're looking to bring online over the next 2 years. The demand for that compute power is not there yet in our region.
And how to get it? By
so
more
how are they doing
awareness?
It? They're baking in artificial intelligence into the education practice from the ground up. They're the first to open an artificial intelligence university in Abu Dhabi because they want students to be graduating with an AI first mindset. It's no longer a case of what can I make that improves what I do today. That's not the conversation that's being taught. The conversation that's being taught is if you are starting from zero and artificial intelligence is as utilitarian as water and electricity, how would you design the future? And what are the products that need to come about that make what we use today obsolete? So those conversations are happening, right? And the idea is that they will converge once demand is fully online. The second is it's about increasing the footprint of the economies that we're looking to serve this compute to. So we're not building compute in our region, and specifically in the UAE and Saudi, only to serve our region. We want to serve all the emerging regions as well. They want to put the hands of intelligence in everyone, so it becomes as utilitarian as possible. That's why they're focusing, for example, on Africa, which is a highly underserved market because the infrastructure is simply not there, or the demand is not there. We're hedging our bets earlier on. We're creating the compute power needed so that once demand comes about, which is already rapidly increasing, we will be ready to serve that faster than anyone else and more efficiently than anyone else. So whoever holds the power of compute holds the future of intelligence.
Wow, that's going to be Middle East. Now, I want to ask you about the real case. If you can share a certain example that you're aware of, so where company approach to AI to apply it, what was the reason behind, what's happened during this pilot or process of adoption, and what was the outcome? Just to understand one example where company stands in this entire process from beginning till the end of pilot or adoption itself.
We get a lot of inbound requests to try and understand how we improve the quality of life, right? And that applies to both internal employee quality of life for our customers, but also their customers. So if it's an entity, if it's a government entity, if it's a conglomerate, they want to enhance the experience for their end users and for their employees. Those are the main two asks. And each have a different methodology of adoption. But always, they both always start with a small test. They want to understand. And they realize that for the first time, technology like AI is not growing at a standard pace. The pace of growth in terms of its advancement is multiplying. And so they can't wait around till something is big enough and ready enough for them to start implementing. They need to start somewhere. So your question around why? Well, why do they want to start in the first place? Or what is triggering them to go, you know what? I want to invest in this thing called AI. I want to be able to try something new. And I think the main purpose goes back to my point around I don't want to be left behind. Not from a fad perspective or a trend perspective, but I don't want to be left behind from my team being exposed to the latest in technology, understanding what value you can derive from that technology. And I don't want to be left behind when it comes to demonstrating the impact I can deliver because of all the global investment that's going into this technology. There has to be something in it. And the only way most of these companies and these clients that we're working with are able to understand what it is that's in it for them is by them trying something. And so I think that is the biggest trigger for the conversations we have started. Now, sometimes these conversations start from the client coming in, going, I want you to come and tell me where you think I should try AI. And then we look at what they have. We give them options. So there's low-hanging fruit that you can try something very quickly, get it up and running in 2 to 3 weeks, and run it for 3 months. And we can do an assessment after that. There's others who want things that are much more bigger and impactful, which then becomes a much bigger task where we involve a lot of people within our ecosystem. What large companies are now doing, and specifically consulting companies, they're not focused only on building everything themselves. They rely on a large private economy ecosystem, startups, large companies that provide solutions, putting multiple solutions together to create a product that is relevant for the ask and so on. Those are the quickest ways to do that, because you have a lot of people focusing on getting one specific thing really, really good rather than overarching AI. They're focusing on a specific product line within AI that they can do better than anyone else, right? Like bookkeeping for law firms, or financial tracking for SME banks.
So focus on the niche.
Exactly, niche focused products. And so that's the process that happens, that we've been seeing is the most successful, because you get to start somewhere quite quickly. You build large ecosystem alliances very quickly, and you're able to learn quickly in terms of what works and what can be done better. So creating this ecosystem is really important. Growing from there, I think it's also interesting that we see that the way we deliver is changing. It's no longer a case of, here's an overall project timeline, here's a cost associated with that timeline, sign here. There's now a much bigger ask for having skin in the game. So what we mean by that is clients are now happy for us to help them build innovation, but they also want us to have sort of a success fee. So if it goes well, it's an upside for you and it's an upside for us. If it doesn't go well, we both get impacted, but we both learn something. And that's becoming fair game more and more in terms of the conversations we're seeing. So beyond those two things, which is starting with an ecosystem or a private ecosystem, a collaboration, working on new revenue drivers and project roadmaps where it's comfortable for the client, and it becomes time-based. The third aspect is around how we generate revenue, right? And the future is moving away from standard ways of generating revenue to being more based on compute consumption. So how do we scale so that revenue drivers are now coming from how much is consumed by way of energy, by way of intelligence, and how we operate and maintain that level of service and quality that we've been doing for classical-based engagements. So those are sort of the three things that we're seeing moving within our space from a delivery standpoint.
Then that's a great place to leave it. Thank you. Thank you, Moussa, for being my guest today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. If this conversation challenged your thinking, let it challenge someone else too. I'm building AI for Sales Edge around execution, results, and reality. AI, leadership, and the logic that actually moves business forward. If you want more conversation at this level, follow AI for Sales Edge. Real stories, real results, no fluff.